Hey y'all, it's Brandon
And Stephanie.
from Getting Gazelle.
We have a confession to make.
Recently in church, we've been going through some stewardship classes in Sunday school and, just talking about finances and things like that. And, and most of the lessons that we're learning, we've already known. But this has definitely been a humbling reminder. So since we've moved here and we've talked about in our previous videos, being in storm cloud mode, and we still have our house in Minnesota and 2 mortgages, one thing that we haven't been faithful with is tithing.
And so what happened was when we left our church and our home in Richmond and we moved to Minnesota, we stopped tithing. It was supposed to be temporarily until we found a church home in Minnesota. Now, we haven't completely stopped giving. And so we were still doing some giving to the church in different things. Some orphan ministries, and some well and water work, things like that. Well, we never found a church home in Minnesota. And so that money just got rolled into our budget, except for those times that we would, get. When we moved to Florida, we realized that we had storm clouds, and so we have 2 mortgages. Well, we have carried 2 mortgages since June. Our house in Minnesota has been on the market since April. We've had expenses here in Florida that we were not expecting. I was not expecting to homeschool again this year. I was also not expecting to pay Classical Conversations tuition this year. In the past, we've been able to homeschool for much cheaper than what we have this year. But we really felt like we needed to plug in with a group.
And it just made me feel so good the other day when I came home and Stephanie said, I just had a conversation with one of the other, Debbie, one of the other CC moms, and it was so encouraging. And not that she doesn't always have a great spirit, but there are, trials that she goes through one day, and it gets lonely.
Being a homeschooler,
yeah. So
and not having a coworker, and I am home with children all day, and it gets lonely. And so
I just loved hearing the other day that I came home and she was like, I just talked with Debbie on the phone, for however long, and it was just super encouraging.
I just needed a little bit of advice from Debbie, and Debbie has done the same program that we're doing. She has 4 kids, and her oldest is now in the high school program, and he's actually dual enrolled at the college too. And so I just really needed encouragement to trust the process. And so that is one of the pluses of the Classical Conversation group. But we did have to pay tuition for that. Yep. And I did have to pay for childcare services for Isaiah for those mornings.
And not that any of these are excuses, but there are, some unplanned things came up, right? We had no idea how much vehicle registration was going to cost coming to Florida.
Right. It's very expensive.
That's a huge expensive transition.
Was another one that just kind of blew us out of the water.
Even setting up power for our new house, because in Florida, the electric company that we have to use, they don't care anything about your credit, about your previous history. Everybody pays a deposit based on what their square footage is, and that was I think we paid $400 deposit.
Yeah.
So if you put all that together with the car registration, the increased insurance, and the power deposit, just that alone was almost $2,000.
Right. So we have had storm clouds, and so we are glad that we followed Dave's advice to pause our debt snowball and to save up for those things. Another thing that we did not realize is that the insurance on our house in Minnesota went up because it is unoccupied. We also have water and power going to our Minnesota house for showings, just because it makes for a nicer showing to be able to turn on lights and look in closets and things like that. Use the restroom if you need to, or wash your hands.
When we get an offer, they're going to want to do an inspection, and the water's going to have to be on and all that.
Right.
So we didn't want somebody to back out because they couldn't do those things.
Or we had to pay to reconnect the water because we did have to pay the connection fee in Minnesota. So
but all those things, again, to reiterate, those aren't excuses. The one thing that we definitely should not have done is to not have our line item in our budget for tithing.
Right.
The message that our pastor says, and When me and Stephanie talked earlier, I said I had never heard it, phrased this way, but she has. So I've always been taught that you're supposed to give 10% of your earnings
to God.
To God as a form of tithe. But the way that our pastor, has delivered the message more recently is that 100% of what we have and what we're given is God's, and we're supposed to return 10% of that, and He allows us to keep the other 90%.
Brandon and I have decided to put tithing back in our budget. Now, I know that Dave Ramsey has said before that he is not encouraging anybody to stop tithing. I do know that some people do feel that they need to stop tithing while they're working their debt snowball. And I know that some people have to stop tithing when they first are trying to figure out their mess of finances. And so I don't want this to come down as being preachy or being judgmental.
Life happens, and we get that.
Life happens, and you do have to worry about your four walls. Your mortgage, your power, your groceries, your way to and from work. Those are the things that you really have to put at the top in your budget. But really, in God's kingdom, your tithe should be above that. But we get it. We get, not having a job or being underemployed. We've been there. We've done that. And when we first got together, we had to make decisions on which bills not to pay because we were just way underemployed for our circumstances, and we were just way underemployed for our circumstances, and we had to make some major changes in careers and things like that in order to make our ship not sink.
It's funny, today we had a we had a video that we watched in our Sunday school class.
Oh, yeah.
And I would say I'm a kinesthetic learner first and a visual learner second, but when I see things that, like videos or little segments, it helps something, either resonate with me or just stick with me. So the video was this guy, and he had a pie, because we all, with our budget sheets, everything's pretty much divided up, right? Like pieces of the pie. So
it was an apple pie, by the way.
It was an apple pie.
I was so hungry.
the first piece went to,
it was a big piece.
And it went to the mortgage.
It went to the house, the man labeled house,
right.
And he was a big guy,
and so he
got
a
big piece of pie for him.
The next two pieces went to car number 1 and car number 2. Oh, thank God! Let's stop right here and thank God that we don't have car number 1 and car number 2 because we have our cars paid off. But it went, those pieces went to him, or went to those two guys. Then the next piece, was a little bit smaller piece. It went to fashion. And then the next piece, it was even smaller, and it went to hobby.
Then at the end, there was this tiny little sliver of pie, and the guy who had been serving the pie went to go sit down, and the little name card in front of it said me, and he started to eat it, and all of a sudden, you hear and all the rest of the table is looking at him. And they are like looking at him, and he's looking at them. And the guy, I think it was the house guy, he said, "Hey, you forgot somebody." And you look, and there's God standing there, and he's got his little placard, and it says God. And the guy's looking at him, and he's looking at his pie, and he's looking at him, and
he takes a bite of it. Like, he goes to take a bite of it, and he kind of covers his face, and one of the other guys at the end makes the comment, says, "He brought the pie."
He brought the pie. So it's all his. And so what we are trying to do, and what we've been trying to do through Dave Ramsey, is be wise stewards of the blessing that we've been given. It's very, very easy here in Tampa to say, "Oh, well, we don't make what so-and-so makes." I mean, we have some people in our Sunday school class that have some pretty, fantastic,
careers.
Dream careers. Yeah. We have, professional ball players, scouts in our class. And so it's very easy for us to say, oh, well, we don't make that, so we're just going to do it our way, and that's not what we intended to do.
No, and I mean, when you talk about percentages, it doesn't matter what somebody makes. 10% is 10% is 10%.
Right. And so we are going to do some tweaking on our budget, and we are going to make it where our tithe is 10%, and it automatically is calculated in our spreadsheet. And then we will figure out how to make everything else work. So I'm sure there's going to be blessings in this. We're not doing it for the blessings. We're doing it to be right with God and to deal with the conviction that we feel as
Absolutely.
a couple. We both felt the conviction separately, and came to each other after church and said, hey, you know, have you thought about adding our tithe back into our budget? And
yeah, it was funny because when I think I said, you know, gosh, it's tough to even say this because I know, you know, we're still in storm cloud mode, and Stephanie looked at me and said, I was thinking the same thing.
yes.
So
And so it might mean that we have to wrench things down and tighten them down a little bit more, but if that's what it means, that's what it means. And it's part of our faith, and it's part of
being a good steward
with what we have been provided.
And then also it's a big part of, you know, if we can't do something that we want to do because of this or whatever, it's a part of, you know, God teaching us that we need to be content with the blessings that he's given us.
Right. So that is what we will be doing. I'm going to be entering some footage of Miss Genesis, our cat, who has not appeared in any footage before because some of you have inquired about her. Hey guys, so I've shown our other three cats, Sterling, Cole, and Jinx, but Genesis has not made it in any of our videos. So this is our baby girl, and she's most often called Jenny instead of Genesis, but she is all white with just a little bit of black, gray right there, although we have noticed that it is spreading. Her brother is completely black, so it'll be interesting to see what happens to her coloring as she gets older. So this is Genesis' brother, and this is Jinx. And he is our cat that can flush the toilet in the middle of the night, which is always interesting. So he is all black, and he is the one that keeps getting a scratch on his eye. And I have to wrestle him to give him his eye drops that we talked about in our How to Save Money on Pet Meds video. Also, I wanted to share the praise that we had Solomon's blood retested, and his white count is now normal.
Yay, Solomon!
The only thing that was a little questionable was his hemoglobin, which he had a big nosebleed, if you remember from a couple of our videos back. So that was not unexpected. So we'll just be keeping an eye on that and watching it, but for now, everything else is great. We don't have any referrals to hematology or anything like that.
Thank you for those of you who prayed and was thinking about us. We really, really appreciate that.
Yes, and as usual, there are 3 ways that you can leave a prayer request for us. You can leave a message down below. You can find us at Getting Gazelle at Facebook, or you can email us at gettinggazelle@gmail.com, spelled just like it is here.
Hey, and don't forget, if you guys like these videos, please, please, please subscribe. It's definitely encouraging. We're seeing our numbers go up again, so it's definitely encouraging to see our new subscribers and followers.
It's been kind of a roller coaster.
Yep, and we get that, and it's cool. But like I said, I mean, if you'll just give us that thumbs up and subscribe, or tell your friends about us and have them subscribe, that would be fantastic.
So until we see you again,
see y'all later.